Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. This podcast is dedicated to the millions of family caregivers who want wellness tips and self-care solutions, who seek expert advice, and who want news about healthy aging and how to create well home design in our forever homes. I'm Sherri Snelling, a corporate gerontologist, author, and educator, a TV interviewer, host, and news commentator. I'm joining you from Southern California, where our interviews and news take us all across the country to explore the many ways to help you on your caregiving journey and to lift you up here at Caregiving Club On Air. Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. I'm your host, Sherri Snelling. I'm a corporate gerontologist, author, and founder and CEO of the Caregiving Club. And for this May episode, we are going to be focusing on Older Americans Month, but also National Travel and Tourism Week, which happens in May. And we have a fantastic guest, one of the best experts out there when it comes to ageless travel. In fact, she's known as the Ageless Adventurer, and that is Debbie Dotson. Now, you may remember Debbie from last season, season 5. We had her on episode 50 if you want to go check that out. She's also an AgeTech guru, so she had given us her insights as to what were some of the best gadgets and apps and other things, other innovations, technology-wise, for older adults that came out of CES. But for this episode, we're going to turn to the passionate pursuit of travel and adventure, and that's something that Debbie is passionate and pursuing out there as a solo traveler. But she's going to share her insights for us on how to travel as an older adult, but also what to think about if you're a family caregiver who wants to travel with an older loved one. So we've got lots of really great, wonderful knowledge and insights, and we'll have links, of course, on our episode guide page. So let's check it out, our interview with Debbie Dotson, the Ageless Adventurer. So, of course, I am so thrilled to have our guest on this episode because she is one of our repeat guests and experts that we love to have on the show. And that is Debbie Dotson, who is the creator of Ageless Adventures, which embraces all kinds of senior travel, caregivers traveling with older adults, solo travelers. She's going to tell us a little bit about. But Debbie, first question for you. Where are we talking to you from today?
I am actually in Central California. If you would have talked to me a week ago, I would have been in Budapest. And a week before that, I would have been in Germany.
Wow. So you are the poster child for great travel at any age. But, I wanted to have you on this episode because, of course, it's Older Americans Month. And we also have been celebrating National, Travel and Tourism. People feel like they have to cut back, or maybe they don't travel as much as they get older, even though we hear, the typical is retirement and then you take the cruise or whatever you're going to do. But, tell us a little bit about what you see that's been changing, because you've been in this space and an expert for a long time. And I will just share personally, I do a lot of airline travel and for business, and I just feel like it's getting tougher and tougher. The first of all, just, the seats seem smaller. And when people lean back, I feel like somebody's sitting in my lap. My connections that I have to make are so much tighter. I'm running to, the gates and stuff to make my connections, and sitting on tarmacs forever. It's really stressful for anyone, but it's really stressful as we get older. But that's just my personal experience. Tell us what you see going on out there.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sherri, for having me. I love talking about this. And I think one of the things right now, airline travel's all over the news every day, all day. A month or so ago, we had the whole TSA thing and all of that. But you're absolutely right. I think with the stress of travel, when you're an older adult, I think what you need to do is give yourself a little grace and not try. You may not get the cheapest fare because the connection at 42 minutes is not realistic. Right. That might have been realistic when I used to travel for business, but it is not realistic for me now. But so give yourself margin. I think you have peace of mind, maybe spending a few dollars more for the ticket. Also, if you're going on a long haul flight, as an older adult, for me, and I know I'm in fairly good shape, but I'm gonna be 69 in a few weeks, and it's getting tougher for me to sit in an economy seat.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I am doing premium economy at the bare minimum on anything over about 6 hours, which is typically an international flight. Another thing you want to do is try to look for stuff that doesn't have so many connections as an older adult, because that is another place where we lose our minds, where we have to go and we've got three connections to go across the country. There are you again, it's really a money-based thing, because you can find better fares that are more convenient and more acceptable to an older person, but it is going to cost a few dollars more. And I also think that airports haven't really fully caught up, on airlines either. They're so focused on making money that, they always ask you how old you are when you book your ticket, and it says if you're over 65. Do you know that really doesn't do anything for you?
I know.
It doesn't
What do
give
I
you a
get?
discount. No
Right.
senior discount, darn it. I think that's one of the things. But I do really think one way to mitigate some of the stress at airports is to know what services you have available to you. And you don't have to have a physical disability to use these services. You can have this is from a sensory situation. Maybe you get panicked in crowds. In the United States, we have a thing called TSA Cares. And TSA Cares is a service that you can get from the time you show up at the airport, where you're accompanied by someone all the way through the process to get to the gate. This isn't like the people who push wheelchairs. This is a TSA program. But saying that too, people just don't realize that they have that option, and that it's a fairly new program, so it's not well publicized. But just I want any of your listeners, TSA Cares. Next time you have to go to the airport, get a hold of TSA, or even if you don't get a hold of them ahead of time, when you arrive at the airport, go to the TSA person and say, I need that. Or if you're checking in at your airline desk, you can mention it to them. Um,
I love that. So we want to make
isn't
sure
that great?
TSA cares. Yeah, that's great. That's very helpful. At least it gives me some hope that they are focusing on an older population. We all know the statistics and the demographics. There's much more of us over 65 than,
Well, yeah, and
younger.
I don't want people to fear travel. That's the other thing, is if you want to go see the world, there do it now. I mean, this
Yeah.
is our time. We have we do have a limited number of amount of time, and when you're over 60, that's just the cold hard fact, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to go, don't let disabilities or stress or any of that hold you back. Also, one thing I do is, besides TSA Care, is to see what other assistants are available. So just even if it's hard to walk from gate to gate because you get winded, you can ask for a wheelchair assistant. It's everybody's like, oh, I'm embarrassed, but it's there for a reason. And don't feel like you're one of the people that are just trying to get ahead of the line, because there are a few of those, the bad apples, as always. But yeah, use what's available to you. Don't ever feel bad about asking for help.
Now, question for you, because I've jumped on a couple of carts in my airline travels to make it to the gate. But do you have to book those ahead of time? Because they aren't always just lingering around where you can catch them. How quick
Yeah.
do they get to you if your flight's been delayed? You need to get to the next gate. How long is that delay before you can maybe get a cart or help?
Well, if you think you're going to need help in the beginning, I would just start from the beginning. But if, let's say, your flight's delayed and you're in mid-flight, you can ask the flight attendant to call ahead to the gate agent that's waiting for the flight, and ask for someone to be waiting there. There's never a guarantee of that. But one time I came off a flight, this was years ago in Phoenix, and the guy was there waiting for me, and I didn't even ask. And he took me lickety split to the next gate, and it was a good thing. And I was the last person on the plane, and everybody was glaring at me. But but
Yeah,
I
not
did
your
make
fault.
it. Yeah, you're gonna make us late. But yeah, it just depends. But again, it goes back to asking.
Yeah.
You don't need, people are sometimes challenged about being vocal about their needs. Please don't ever think that you are the customer, and there are things there in place for help. So, tell the flight attendant, look, my flight's going to be late. I have a very short connection. Are you able to call ahead to the gate agent and ask for a cart to be there? If you do have a wheelchair assistant waiting for you because you've arranged that already, then they're going to know that you're late too.
Right.
Now, I heard something, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I have not tested this. Somebody told me that if you're on wheelchair assistance for all the sections of your flight and your flight is delayed, they may hold your next flight for you for a short period of time, not like an
Oh,
hour,
right.
but I haven't tested the theory, so I'm just saying don't count on that. But I
Right.
heard that 2 times recently
Okay.
that they do that. But then I asked someone else, they said, well, don't count on it. But
Yeah.
again, vocalization of what's happening, what you need. I think flight attendants are very attuned to older travelers. I mean, you're seeing me now on here, but in real life, I got a bunch of wrinkles, and so I do get
Well, you look
treated.
fabulous.
I do get treated like a mature traveler. So when I'm on a plane, by the way. Um,
Right.
but just there's no stigma around using assistance, and
Absolutely.
we all don't want to bother anybody, but no, it's exhausting. Use the support systems in place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Hopefully, I mean, if it's a 5 minute delay, the pilots can sometimes make that up in the air. So I
Yeah.
get it. But you're right. If it's much longer than that, they're really under the gun to keep those numbers on delays down. And
Yeah, and they're not going to hold. I mean, we were held the I last flight from Phoenix last week from Phoenix back to Fresno where I live. They did hold our flight for about 15 minutes for someone. Now, I don't
okay.
know if they were what the situation was, but we weren't really late getting here. They were able to, offset it. But
Yeah.
just again, don't count on that. And here's the thing, if your flight does get delayed and you missed your connection, take a deep breath. There's a gate agent when you get off the plane, immediately seek their help. They may be able to redo your next flight right there at that desk, or they'll send you to the main customer service area for the airline, which is usually not too far, depending on which airport you're in. So
Yeah.
again, don't stress over that. I want to say mobility services, the trains in Europe,
Right.
um, very good with their mobility services. Italy was fabulous. I have a back injury, and when you get on a train, sometimes you have to get up a couple steps. If you've got a 40-pound suitcase with you, walking up those steps is pretty much impossible. And I tell people ask for help, but I am reluctant to ask a fellow traveler to help me, but they are normally very willing. So I have tested the mobility assistance services in both Germany and both Italy, and it was excellent. In Germany, the little lady came in a golf cart. She had a little pink uniform and a little pink beret.
Yeah.
She
I
didn't
love it.
speak much English, but we communicated.
I love that. Yeah,
You know,
I think in general, Europe has always been a little bit ahead of the US in terms of acknowledging the older population and their needs and all of those types of things. Now,
well,
I've got oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but getting you from gate to gate is their job. But don't expect to do it on your own because some of those historic train stations have no escalator, no lifts, and just a bunch of stairs, or no lift that you can see, right?
Right.
So, Europe trains might be good, but the rest of Europe, if we have time today, I'll talk about the challenges of that.
Sure. Well, and if we run out of time, we'll definitely have you back on to come back and tell us more. I want to get to two things quickly you kind of touched on. One is solo agers. I think both of us have talked and we're both solo agers. And so, if you want to travel and you don't have a spouse or partner who's into it, or your sister is caregiving for her husband and can't go or whatever, what are some of the tips that you have for solo agers? And would you advise from kind of a safety and also a socialization standpoint to join a tour group rather than try to do it on your own?
So if you've never traveled solo alone, solo by independently ever on a big trip, then yes, I would strongly recommend that you start with two things. One is taking a local weekend trip near your home. Try that out first and see how you do,
Yeah.
and then from there, tours. There are all kinds of tours specifically for older adults. There are tour companies. I am actually going to go on a trip with Elder Treks.
Okay.
They just reached out to me yesterday, and I'm going to test them out to see how it is. Typically someone like a Rhodes Scholar, that tends to be an older audience. That's where a good travel advisor can come in, because I love AI. I love planning trips on AI, but when I get it all put together, then I like the human touch,
Right. Right.
I told you this when we went in. So this year I became a travel advisor, mostly for my friends and family, but because I was already planning everybody's travel anyway. And now I just wanted to, be able to give more support to these travelers. But there's a river cruise line, and they've decided they're going to devote a whole river cruise boat to solo travelers. Most of their travelers are 50 and up. It's not a singles cruise, it's just
Right.
solo travelers. River cruises are very good for solo travelers. You can book, you can go, there will likely be several of them on the trip with you. The river cruise I was on with AMA Waterways, we had six solo travelers out of 105 on the ship. And one lady celebrated her 80th birthday on the ship as a
Fantastic.
solo. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah,
I
I
was so
love that.
excited. And another
Yeah.
person, so the solo travelers were between 66 and 80. Um,
Okay.
and, sometimes you do bond with each other. A lot of times, you'll be drawn to a couple, and the couple will invite you to have dinner with them. So I think one of the things from a solo perspective is that if you're very introverted, you will have to step out of your comfort zone. But
Mhm.
going on a tour with other people is a safe way to go. The tour manager is always looking out for you on those trips. And I've done it a lot of different ways. I've gone on 5 tours with one company that I really like. Those groups are between like 40 and up. Um, there was a couple on one of our tours that was 88.
Okay.
So
So,
I mean, you're going to find someone you're going to meet someone. If you're in a
right.
group of 40 people on a tour, you can also take small group tours, 20 people or less. So yeah, there's lots of ways to travel. Don't think you can't travel if you're solo, because there's so many options out there for you.
Yeah. And also family caregivers. Don't feel that your loved one will be unsafe or get worried about them, because there are a lot of these safeguards, and they can still go out and explore and find that adventure that you're talking about. Now, the other population that I always say ways to find joys in dementia caregiving, and the same kind of message. You don't have to stop traveling, but it is a challenge. And there are some things happening. I just came across a site that was about dementia-friendly airports, and they were talking about the UK guidelines now on how to really support people who are traveling with dementia. And I know there's been a couple pilots here in the US in some of the airports, but what are the tips or insights that you have if you want to travel with somebody who does have dementia?
So be prepared. Preparation is key. Find out ahead of time what's available because it's not widespread yet. Now, sometimes the caregiver in the dementia situation can be akin to autism or
Sure.
learning disabilities, people with things like that. So that has gotten a lot more press, right? But
Right.
some of the same safeguards are they go for
Sure.
both things, right?
Yeah.
Awareness is increasing. They're finding that they have sensory friendly spaces. They're training their staff. That's a key to anything is having the staff trained to be able to interject when necessary. Cruise travel works well for a caregiver with someone in early stage dementia.
Okay.
But I'll tell a really quick story. A lady went on a cruise a couple years ago with me, a river cruise, and brought her husband who was early stage. She thought they still had time,
Right.
but she wanted to still have fun herself. And so like we went on a walking tour and she left. And she
Right.
left him, and he got very disoriented. And the tour manager had to sit with him, and they were trying to reach her. And basically, one of the other ladies with us was a nurse, and she stayed with him till they could
Right.
locate the wife. And the wife said, "I just thought we had more time."
Oh,
So be cognizant of where your person is at in their dementia journey.
yeah.
You know,
Well, and
is
that brings up something too, Debbie, that's your other expertise, which is technology and age tech. And, I almost see that as an instance where you would want to have a wearable, let's say, that has a GPS tracker
yes,
so that you get
yes.
you get an immediate alert if you're the wife, okay, the husband's left the cabin or wherever she left
Right.
him, right?
Yeah. So air tags, a tool called SpotMinder, which is something akin to an air tag. I just like it because it's a flat device. And
Sure.
they also have a RFID piece in a passport cover. So you could actually and there's clothing, there's tagged clothing. I almost feel like I would double dip. I would air tag and put something on the clothing that the person couldn't remove.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point. Yeah, I know with the
because
wearables, they like to take them off. There's a couple that keep them locked, but yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
yeah, but there are clothes now that you can buy that have the location tracking and you hook it up to your phone. Um, So yeah, you can put portable devices on doors that beep if the door is open. So if you're
Okay.
sleeping and maybe the person tries to leave the cabin,
Right.
but that's important. I actually had a person on a group that I went with last year. She kept getting lost, and so we air tagged her just so we
Okay.
could find her. And
I
it
love
was
it.
kind of a, she knew she was air tagged, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
like another thing I recommend is if that person has a cell phone, if the ill person has or the infirm person has put it on a tether around their neck so they
Sure.
can't put it down somewhere because that was something that happened too.
Yeah.
Um, but caregivers need support, and it's going to be exhausting. It may not be a vacation for the caregiver.
Right.
That's really the bottom line because you're going to have to be on high alert. You can't expect the crew, the cab of the ship. You cannot expect them to be in charge. They're not going to babysit.
Right.
So I feel like for caregivers, my advice is if there's somewhere that you just want to go untethered, take that trip, find someone to take your place. You need the break. You
Yes,
need the break too. You and I have talked about this before. Caregivers get so involved in the situation that they start to become sick, stress, whatever, and they need the break. So,
absolutely.
take the trip and do it. But, I think it's really going back to what I said. I think the overstimulation, the change in environment, the stress, be really aware of where your dementia person is in their journey, at what
Yeah,
stage. Because
yeah,
it could trigger like it did with this couple. It triggered him to become much worse than he had been at home.
yeah. Well, and this is not something that is on or that you can get all the time. I think it was even just a pilot, but I heard about a cruise where it was dementia friendly and it was focused on Alzheimer's. And they
Mhm.
encouraged the couples to come, but they brought the dementia care workers on board
Oh,
ship and assigned them. So just what you're saying. So the caregiver could walk away, peace of mind, go to the pool, go, play bridge or whatever, or do whatever they do, and have that caregiver watch over their loved one. It was, I mean, it's a
that's
perfect scenario.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
that
think
is
it was
absolutely
not
wonderful.
something you can go find readily. Hopefully it'll, come about in the future. While we're talking about tech, just real quickly, because I know we only
Yeah,
have a few minutes, it goes so fast with you.
I know.
Are there any other technology gadgets or apps or things that you would recommend just for anybody who's older who's traveling?
Well, I have a couple for anybody who's traveling, older or not. Translation apps like Google Translate on your phone if you're going out of the country. Medical info on your lock screen. A wearable, even if it's just an iWatch or a similar watch that has that. I never travel without my iWatch. Now, occasionally I do have to pay attention to it because if there's a loud noise or something, sometimes it thinks I fell. So just make
Right?
sure it's not sending the SOS. Um, there's bathroom apps, how to find public bathrooms. My
Oh,
favorite thing, Flush, like Flush, Bathroom Scout, and Where
right.
is Public Toilet are just a few.
Okay.
Some are just US, some are international, but also government buildings, train stations, hotels. Always you can find bathrooms there because that's one of the things I'm always I'm always wanting. I'm always worried when I'm traveling. Where am I going to find a bathroom? Um,
Yes.
yeah, portable charger. Don't just expect the charger back in your room. Bring some small charger, a magnetic one or one that plugs in or something for your phone because you don't want a dead battery. And
Yeah.
don't believe that thing about you can send your location if your battery's dead. No, that's false. That's a scam.
Okay.
Noise canceling earphones or earbuds. I prefer earphones. I actually have a brand. JBL has a noise canceling headset, very small. Um, it's like $70, which is a third of the price of everyone else's, and I love it. It works fabulous. Institute ride share safety features like if you're using Uber, you can ask for, if you're a female, ask for a female driver. Always make sure you're sharing your location with someone in your family back home. You institute it on your phone, they institute it on their phone, and that way they can track you. Also, make a plan with them that you're going to check in at periodically so that they know that if you don't check in within an hour of your prescribed time, that they can, and then give them who they can contact. I put together a Google Doc when I travel, and I share it with my husband who doesn't travel, and he knows at any given time where I'm at.
Okay. Oh, so apologies. You're not a solo ager like me. You do
I
have a
am
husband at
solo
home.
in the sense that I travel. I'm not, yes, I am. My husband has retired from traveling. That's what he told me.
You're just a
So
solo traveler. I get it.
3 years. I've
Um,
been traveling solo for 3 years as a solo traveler.
wow, that's great. Well, I know, we've only got about 4 or 5 more minutes here, but
Okay.
is there anything we haven't cover that you feel is important for, either older travelers or caregivers of people, that have special needs that they're traveling with?
Again, going back to what I said initially, just vocalizing and researching. There are travel advisors who are focused on accessible travel because it is such a challenge. Um, Europe is a challenge. It's a beautiful place. It's historic, but there's cobblestones, there's curbs. They haven't reached the whole thing of ADA compliance. Even on some cruise ships, there is a little lip to the shower, so you can't roll in. So, you want to check with your cruise line to make sure you have an accessible cabin. I'm a huge fan of rail travel because I find that it's less stressful, but the part that's stressful for that is getting on and off the train. So,
Yeah.
pack lighter than you think because that if you have to lift your luggage, for some reason. Um, there's just so much. Just being really prepared, and I love the cruise idea. In fact, now I'm going to go and I'm going to try to find that cruise
I need
because
to,
I want
I
to. I
don't
want to
know.
talk about it.
I know, and I don't know if it's out there. I think they did it as a special event, but I was hoping it would catch fire and maybe somebody would keep it going.
Well, I think the problem with large cruise lines, and here's a thing about cruise lines. The type of cruise line you pick is important too, because I'm sorry, I'm not trying to diss a specific cruise line that starts with a C, but they have a reputation of being a party boat with a lot of younger people partying all the time. Just because it's an inexpensive cruise, don't do it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
they're like Cunard, that's the one who operates the Queen Mary. Um, you know, uh, the other thing is getting travel. I'm kind of all over the place right now, but travel insurance.
I
Travel
was going to
insurance
ask you
is
about that. Okay.
important.
Okay. So that's a
Okay.
big one. Okay.
Medical evacuation and God forbid repatriation. Okay. I know of an extended family member who passed away in Thailand on a trip.
Oh boy.
And thank goodness they had the insurance
Right.
because the cost to bring his body back to the United States was in excess of $65,000.
Ah,
And it was, and so they didn't have to pay it because they had the insurance. But like all the paperwork, all the things. So that's important. Also, if you're in the middle of the ocean on a cruise ship and you have to be evacuated by a helicopter, how much do you think that costs? So, travel insurance is so important. It adds to the cost of your trip, but plan for that,
yeah. Because a lot of
If
people probably think, well, Medicare will cover that, but it doesn't,
not
right?
overseas, unless you have a specific like Medicare Advantage, which has a tiny amount of coverage on travel. If you travel outside the United States with Medicare and a Plan B, you are not covered. Now, some countries are less expensive to get care. You can go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist will pretty much treat you, but don't count on that. If you fall ill or you have an accident, people fall all the time. So if you fall and break something, you want to have that coverage no matter what and know you have that peace of mind. So I am a big proponent of travel insurance. And I buy an annual policy, and then I recently just even added a short-term policy to kind of back up my annual policy.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because that is a really important point, maybe one of the most important. I'm getting encouraged. I think I told you that I saw an Airbnb now. There's a special tab that you can, click,
Click.
and it'll filter the homes that are ADA, American Disabilities,
Right,
Act
compliant.
accessible. Yeah, universal design compliant. So I'm feeling like, okay, finally we're recognizing that people want to travel no matter what age, but we need to make sure where we're going is going to work for us, right?
Exactly. And ask the questions, prepare, use a trusted travel advisor, and make sure they get you some travel insurance. And there's a lot of options out there. I'm now that I'm in the travel business, I obviously can sell travel insurance through the partners of my agency. But AARP, they have it's not they don't sell the insurance, but they have a search engine that they use, and you can check what your policies are there. I used them the very first time I bought travel insurance. I went through the search engine that brought it up. But again, a trusted travel advisor, that's, you can research all day long with AI, and it's a great tool. I love AI, but at the end of the day, being able to have a human to ask questions to who has had the experience too.
Yeah.
That's another thing. If you're a 75-year-old traveler, the 25-year-old travel advisor might not be the person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I think you do need that human touch, that human input to make sure that you've covered all the bases.
Right.
And I always say, we don't know what we don't know. So always ask an expert. Because they're going to be the ones.
I learn something new every day.
Yeah. So even if you're researching, you may not know what to research, but you're going to be the expert that's going to help guide people. Well, Debbie, before we get cut off here, where can our audience find more information about your videos and your writings and all your travel adventures?
Oh my gosh. I'm all over the internet. I am on YouTube. I have a show on YouTube. It's under Senior Travel Adventures / Ageless Adventures. My travel company is Ageless Adventures Travel.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. A reminder, you can find more information in my book on caregiving, healthy aging, brain health, and how wellness is built on balance. Check out Me Time Monday, the weekly wellness plan to find balance and joy for a busy life, or visit MeTimeMonday.com or CaregivingClub.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caregiving Club On Air. Please hit the subscribe button to listen to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Pandora, as well as other listening channels. And subscribe to our Caregiving Club YouTube channel to watch the podcast and find all of our other educational caregiving content. Remember to check out the resources and article links for this episode on our episode guide page, caregivingclub.com. Just hit the podcast tab. And email us with any comments or questions at cast@caregivingclub.com. Thank you again for listening and watching. Take care and stay well.